Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, we were nominated for 6 CBC Awards. So please do me a favor, go to cbcawards.org, link in the description below, and vote for your favorite channels, possibly including us. We're nominated for favorite channel in our subscription tier, best overall channel, best comic book review, best ongoing series with the weekly comic book review, best collaboration with the monthly comic book review, and best beard and hair. So if you feel so inclined, please do vote and help support PCP. We want to try to sweep the categories and do it for you, the PCP Army. Alright, we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week I do not have physically in my hands because it was shorted by Diamond. However, Image Comics is awesome, so I got to read a digital copy of Swan Songs number 3. Swan Songs number 3 is the pick of the week. The third issue of Swan Songs, the third pick of the week. In fact, it was my pick of the month this last month for August and for July. I'm loving this book. It's written by W. Maxwell Prince, the writer of Ice Cream Man, the writer of Ha Ha, and just like those series, this is a dark, twisted, yet very much nuanced exploration of the human condition through an anthology comic book. Each issue, a different artist, each issue a story about the end of something. The first issue was the story of the end of the world. The second issue was the story of an end of a marriage. This is about the story of the end of the world, right? So after the apocalypse, when humanity starts trying to pull themselves back together, we have a new Eden, a new Adam and Eve, and new potentials and new possibilities, yet somehow maybe the human condition can still kind of F that up a little bit. This book was absolutely phenomenal. I love the almost tongue-in-cheek way that W. Maxwell Prince structures this story. The artwork is done by Felipe Andrade, who we know as the artist of Many Deaths of Layla Starr and the upcoming Rare Flavors. The art is spectacular in this book. A beautiful coloring, great composition, and a maximum effective way to tell this story. Now let's get to some physical books. And also from Image, we have Sacrificers issue number 2. This is the new book from Rick Remender, Max Fiumara. This was the free comic book day issue for Image this year, and I heard a lot of good things about it, and I really loved issue number 1, and I really loved issue number 2 just as much. It continues that momentum that was established in issue number 1. This is a story about a world that's run by these like gods or something like that, and they require sacrifices, like children's sacrifices from families, poor families, to keep things running or something like that. So this is about a group of kids who are taken to be sacrifices, their journey, and how fearful it makes some of them, how hopeful it makes some of them, because some people, they've been trained their whole lives that this is an honor and they're going to be reaching heights of glory to be sacrificed, and then other people are definitely freaking scared about it. And the way that Rick Remender is able to have all these different interpretations of these events through these different kids' eyes and how that works together, defining each character, but also the whole story as a whole, was amazing. The artwork by Max is absolutely top-notch, and Sacrificers, it gets the smell of the week. The art is great, the story is great, and the smell is great. Then we got Kill Your Darlings, issue number 1, a new one from Image Comics. This one is written by Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan with artwork by Robert Quinn. This one was alright. It was decent, but it was kind of hard to fully sink my teeth into it. It also has amazing smell. It's also like a great smell. So it's about this, it's weird. There's this one story going on where there's like this young girl and her mother's going through financial troubles and stuff like that, and this girl's kind of like feeling the effects on it, though she's trying to escape into this fantasy world, right? And then the other story is the fantasy world, like her play acting and this and that, and what happens when reality and fantasy start overlapping. So it was interesting. It had some interesting parts. It was decent enough artwork, but it never really quite sunk its teeth into me to really hook me to bring me back for issue number 2. So we shall see. Untold Tales of I Hate Fairyland is here with issue number 3, an anthology book with a bunch of short stories from different creators set in Scotty Young's Fairyland world. It is crude, it is rude, it is irreverent, and it is also just so much fun. This is a book that does not take itself too seriously, and all of the creators that are picked, and I don't know if they're curated and picked by Scotty Young, but I'm assuming they are, they all fit that vein of what this book should be, with the crude humor aspect of it, but also just the zany kind of bonky, almost kid-like approach to it. So Untold Tales of I Hate Fairyland, issue number 3, was dope. Then we've got Birds of Prey from DC Comics, issue number 1, a new book from Kelly Thompson, Leonardo Romero, and Jordi Belair. They were a team with Leo and Kelly were on Hawkeye, the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series. That was one of my favorite books from Marvel at that time, several years ago, like 5 years ago maybe now at this point. So them teaming up together for Birds of Prey, I'm excited. I like this team. It's Black Canary, it's Cassandra Cain Batgirl, it's Harley Quinn, it's Big Barda, and it's Zealot. A really cool team, a really cool reason for this team to get together. The art was great, the line work, the composition, everything about it soared. The color choices were amazing. The only thing that really bothered me is that it feels like there's something off about the printing on this book. When I read it, it's almost like it makes the line work a little fuzzy, almost like there's something off with the color and the line work. I don't feel like that's intentional. Maybe it is. To me, I feel like this is a printing error, but I'm not sure. I need to take a look at a digital copy of this just to see. But I like every mark done by Leonardo Romero. I love the color choices by Jordi Belair. I really like the story and the dialogue and the characterizations. But there's something about the printing that just kind of throws it off. What did you think? Did it look off to you with the printing? Then we got Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue number 1, spinning out of the events of the Power Girls special. Fire and Ice, who used to be part of that Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, Kevin Maguire Justice League run back in the day with Blue Beetle and Booster Gold and Guy Gardner. Yeah, they're back. And after the events of the recent Power Girl one-shot, I guess, they've been told by Superman, hey, y'all are causing too much commotion. Fire's not over the fact that she used to be a famous superhero. Ice is just trying to ignore it and have a quiet moment. And Superman's like, why don't you just go chill in my old spot, Smallville? Things will be easy and better for you there, but not really. But it has a nice quirky sense of fun to it. I really like the approach to these characters. This is not a book that takes itself very seriously, so if you're going into this thinking it's going to take itself very seriously, you are going to be sorely disappointed. This book is just big dumb fun and kind of cute at the same time, so I did rather enjoy it. Then we got Blue Beetle, issue number 1. That's right, Blue Beetle's movie star, where they wanted him to be. However, you got to focus on Jaime, especially when he's got a movie in theaters. We just had a Graduation Day miniseries, and that, of course, is now available in trade paperback. But now we got a new number 1. I don't know if this is the same team from that Graduation Day miniseries, and I read that for a couple issues, but then just kind of easily fell out of it. But I'll tell you what, I did enjoy this first issue of Blue Beetle. It's definitely carrying over some of the story threads and characters from the previous run, but I never felt lost. The book did a great job with the script of informing me of what's going on, getting me caught up into the story, and just delivering a really great, bouncy, fun, dynamic comic book with a bunch of energy. And that's what Blue Beetle should be. So this issue number 1, I rather enjoyed. Then we got Batman 137, the second part of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War crossover. It started in the Battle Lines one-shot last week, and I said, if you read Batman, you definitely want to read that because this is a direct follow-up to that one-shot and absolutely superb in my opinion. Basically, Catwoman, while Batman's been asleep for 8 weeks post-Night Terrors, has cleaned up Gotham. She's basically trained all of these thieves to go out and get the job done and steal from the rich without actually hurting anybody or causing violent crime or anything like that. But she wants the Bat family just to kind of turn a blind eye to her people. Batman is not cool with that, and who would think that Batman would? Also, Batman's possessed by like a multiverse of Zur-En-Ars right now, so that's kind of throwing him unhinged. He's got an Anakin Skywalker arm that spits out smoke bombs and shit, so like it's actually a pretty cool escalation of Batman and his journey into madness pretty much, but I'm enjoying it. Jorge Jimenez back on the artwork, giving us some really great kinetic stuff. Really great story. I'm actually really enjoying this story. You got the Batman Rogues Gallery involved, you got the Bat family involved, and Batman's starting to go a bit bonkers, and it is definitely heating up between him and Selina, and not in a good way. So Batman 137, I absolutely loved it. Poison Ivy issue number 14 is here, continuing the momentum that was stiffened just a little bit by 2 months off because of Night Terrors. Now, I am glad that Night Terrors is over because these books can get back to what they were doing, and Poison Ivy hasn't missed a beat yet. I'm loving this series, introduction of a new villain, a mystery behind this person. Poison Ivy's trying to investigate it. You got other things going on with supporting cast members, including Harley Quinn. Lots of interesting things being played with here, lots of cool artwork, and when this book first started, I was like, it's trying to define this line, this blurry line of Poison Ivy as a heinous villain, but also as kind of an anti-hero. And G. Willow Wilson and company have really straddled that line and really have taken a shaky start and built a firm foundation with it, and then built something on top of that. Poison Ivy is one of my most solid books consistently at DC. We got Shazam here with issue number 3. Shazam's powers are going all kinds of wonky. Mark Waid gives us a little bit of explanation as to maybe why or how that's going on, and it's intriguing and it's mysterious and it's fun. But the best part of this book, of course, is the Dan Mora artwork with coloring is done by Alejandro Sanchez. I love the artwork in this book. I love the layouts. It's kinetic. It is dynamic. It is explosive. It is exactly what a superhero DC book should be, especially somebody with the power set of Shazam. But really cool things going on here. If you like great comic book art, classic superhero comic book storytelling, you need to check that one out. Justice Society of America is here with issue number 6. We just ended the first arc of Justice Society of America. That came to a very satisfying conclusion. Now we're picking up the pieces here and cementing what the direction of this book is going to be post the dawn of the new golden age or whatever, right? And also folding in all the stuff from Stargirl and the Lost Children miniseries. It's all coming together here. Stargirl's recently saved a bunch of unknown characters from the golden age, sidekicks and such, that have been whisked away and wiped away from memory, and that's all being integrated back into the DCU, and it's been done in excellent fashion. Jeff Johns is here just doing what Jeff Johns does, and when Jeff Johns writes a Justice Society of America book, we need to pay attention. Then we got Peacemaker Tries Hard, issue number 5, is it? Issue number 5. I'm loving this book. Kyle Starks is doing a great job of really incorporating what James Gunn brought with the John Cena to the character Peacemaker in that Peacemaker TV series especially, and is bringing it right into the comic book page in a DC Black Label book that does not have any holds barred, has no holds barred, and it's just insane, wonky, stupid, crude humor, but it also got some heart to it, and it's got a great cover here that's like homaging Kindergarten Cop, which I absolutely think is amazing. Let's jump over to Marvel. And from Marvel, we have Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy, issue number 1, a continuation of that Silver Surfer Rebirth book by Ron Mars and Ron Lim. The Rons had a very successful run on Silver Surfer back in the 90s. They got brought back to do a miniseries a couple years ago, Silver Surfer Rebirth. Then they went to did Warlock Rebirth that just wrapped up. Now we got Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy. You got an awesome Frank Miller cover. I know people have got their opinions about Frank Miller's artworks nowadays, in particular some of these Marvel covers, but I absolutely love this Silver Surfer cover by Miller. This book was awesome, though. I really liked it. I like that Ron Lim, Ron Mars stuff from back in the day. This gives me that classic kind of feel. The art's not 100% like it was back in those days, because it does have some of the more modern coloring, and it does kind of take away a little bit of a tactile experience that I used to have with Ron Lim's artwork in that Silver Surfer book, but the story is fun, it's classic, it's vibing, it's cool. Basically, Genisvel wants to know a little bit more about his father, so Silver Surfer's like, yo, let's go back in time and meet your father. But there's more to it than that. If it seems like things are going a little bit wonky and out of character, that's for a reason, and it's quite obvious. But Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy, I had a lot of fun with that one. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man, issue 33. I really liked this issue of Spider-Man. I really liked it. I was done. I was done with Spider-Man. but just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. That last issue I thought was absolutely amazing. Had a big shock, twist, surprise ending that I was not expecting, and I'm really excited to see how they develop that. And so far, so good. There is a little bit too much of like depending on you understanding Kraven's Last Hunt, which is one of the best Spider-Man stories ever told, in my humble opinion. So if you're not familiar with Kraven's Last Hunt, definitely check that out in trade paperback. There's a decent enough trade paperback collection available as we speak, and that should always be in print because that's one of those perennial Spider-Man books in my opinion. But this is kind of hearkening a little bit back to that, maybe a little bit too much. There's a lot of potential with this story. I don't really want to explain it. I did spoilery kind of talk about it on Rockin' Robbie Live on Sunday, but here on this show I don't really want to get into it. But let's just say Spidey might be Breaking Bad again, and Kraven's involved, and Patrick Gleason's on the artwork, and the story's actually pretty solid. So there you go. Then we got Moon Knight here with issue number 27, continuing what Jed MacKay's been doing in the pages of Moon Knight, which is telling a really great one-and-done story, but at the same time building something larger. Now, we're obviously heating up to the big finale of this run, allegedly, with the death of Moon Knight, or whatever that's supposed to be. So we're definitely getting a little bit less self-contained, a little bit more building everything up that's been set up and allowing those dominoes to fall. Artwork in this one is not by the normal artist, it's that fill-in artist, so it's just a little bit, still it's got this nice dynamism to it, but it doesn't have quite the sophistication of the line work, if that makes sense. So the artwork is just okay, but the story is good, and at this point, if you're not reading this series, they are building up a lot that's been built up over the course of 27 plus issues, because there was other stuff like tie-ins and one-shots or something like that. Anyway, Moon Knight has been a good book, and it's one of the only Moon Knight books that has engaged and enthralled me for more than 10 issues. So I really, really applaud them for that. Fantastic Four number 11. Ryan North is doing a decent job with Fantastic Four. This is my favorite comic book of all time, is Fantastic Four. I love those characters. I will always collect this book no matter what, and I do enjoy this run. It at times gets a little overly verbose. The coloring is a little bit too plasticky for me, and it's a little bit too orange and plasticky. That being said, I really liked this issue. Basically, the Thing wakes up and he's, their house is like falling down this giant pit. He's like floating around. There's this dog. I mean, it's actually a really cool, solid issue and a nice spotlight on Ben Grimm. So I enjoyed it. I liked it. But some of the slight criticisms I have about this run, they still hold true for me. Doctor Strange is here with issue number 7. There was a big revelation in the last issues of Doctor Strange about what is actually going on. Who is the threat? What's the villain? And it's cool. Jed MacKay is doing a good job with Doctor Strange. His Doctor Strange work, though, doesn't quite captivate me or engage me as much as his Moon Knight stuff does. I think he excels a little bit better on street level type stuff. However, mysticism has a root at the heart of Moon Knight as well. But the Doctor Strange stuff was very interesting. Pascal Ferry's doing a great job with the artwork here. It does kind of just meander around a little bit towards like the end of this issue, but there's a lot of cool setup and a lot of interesting stuff, but it just feels like there could have been more to this because it felt like we already knew all of this. They were just reiterating everything we needed to know, if that made sense. So I'm still liking Doctor Strange, but I'm not liking it as much as I'm liking MacKay's Moon Knight. Then we got Hunt for the Skinwalker, issue number 1, a new one from Boom Studios, written by Zach Thompson, also involving, who is it? It's, what's the dude's name? George Knapp, right? It's about the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, George Knapp, Colm Kelleher. They wrote that book about the Skinwalker Ranch like 20 years ago or something. This is a title that Boom's been wanting to develop. It's basically retelling that novel and the story of Skinwalker Ranch in a comic book graphic form. Zach Thompson does a great job. It's very much kind of like Blue Book. It's told that way, very matter-of-factly, very reporter-like. But if you're not familiar, the Skinwalker Ranch is a place in Utah. It's like a hotbed of UFO activity, supernatural beasts, all this kind of stuff. And there was an investigation done. A lot of the stuff is apparently documented. You can dive into it. It's an interesting story. It's cool stuff. I liked the exploration of it in this book, but the book itself doesn't quite capture through the art the creepiness of it. Everything is a bit too many panels per page, too much exposition, and it doesn't allow the artwork to actually show how creepy these things are. They just have to tell us how creepy they are. And maybe that's one of the negative side effects of adapting a non-fiction book. But anyway, Hunt for the Skywalker, if you're into that kind of jam, you definitely want to check that out. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World with issue number 9. Man, I love this book. It's about these two lovers at the end of the world. At the end of the world, they're alone, they meet each other. In that first arc, they fall in love. The second arc has been about them loving and building something together. And now what they're building is falling apart. What's really crazy is that Once Upon a Time at the End of the World is, in a slow way, diving into some of the exact same themes that W. Maxwell Prince has been doing with Swan songs, talking about the end of the world, talking about what happens at the end of the end of the world, talking about what happens at the end of a relationship, or when things start really getting struggly. And I love how Jason Aaron is able to take the outside of the world, the outside story that's going on, the events, and kind of relate that to what's going on with our main characters here as they're losing their connection. Everything's going really wrong in the world again. So I really like this book. I like the hopefulness of it, but I also like the brutal honesty in this book. So Once Upon a Time at the End of the World continues to be awesome. Red Room, Crypto Killers, number 4. The final issue of Red Room. I am sad to see the series go, but I am glad that Ed Piskor got in, told his story, developed his art, and then is getting out and is already working on something new. The final issue of Red Room was a very in-your-face, raw, rough book to get. You can look through it and see a lot of nudity and stuff like that, but this is not a sexy book. This is a very disturbing book. And Red Room has been a disturbing book the entire time. But what I love about what Ed Piskor has done on the final issue of Red Room is remind us that, yeah, we've gotten gross, we've gotten disgusting, we've gotten gory, but for the most part, we've been having fun. Maybe I don't want you to have fun with this issue. Maybe I want you to realize how nasty, dirty, and depraved this world and these people are, and he really does that. His artwork just totally excelling here. I love this style of artwork. I hope to see him explore this kind of like duo shade, screen tone type thing, the way that he's doing his toning in this book. I hope that I get to see him explore that more further in the future in other titles, because I know that he's got what's the name of it? Switchblade something. He's got his daily strip that he's working on. And he's really exploring color there, and I'm really proud of that. But the artwork in Red Room has been top-notch. But yeah, every once in a while, especially in the last issue, we got to realize that it's not meant to be super, super fun. Then we also got a Tom Scioli variant, which of course I had to get. I thought that was super cool. And then the Jim Rugg variant, where he's always been doing these homages to comic books. This is an homage to Hip Hop Family Tree at the 10th anniversary of the Hip Hop Family Tree. And that's going to be my cover of the week right there. All right, from Dark Horse Comics, we got Tear Us Apart, issue number 1. This book was okay, story-wise. It's about this group of kids. They live in this world that this dude is like worshiping some kind of like god of violence or something. He's trying to teach these kids to go out and be viscerally violent and like fend for themselves and kill each other and stuff like that. And it's okay. It's all right. It's about this guy. This one of the kids falls in love with this other kid, and they have to escape from this, but then all the other kids go after him. So it's interesting. It's decent enough, but it didn't really stand out story-wise on its own. But what really stood out was the frickin' artwork. The artwork is great. The brutality of the fighting is there. The splashiness of the blood is there. It was just that the story didn't fully quite work for me, but I really liked this artwork. I liked the approach to it. It told the story very, very well. There was just some moments where the dialogue in particular kind of stiffened up the flow a little bit of this book. But Tears Apart was decent. Some really solid artwork and an okay story. Barnstormers is here with issue number 3. This is the final issue, and each issue of Barnstormers, like most of these other Scott Snyder, Comixology, Dark Horse books, is actually 2 comics in one, and it kind of justifies the $4.99, $5.99 price tag. In this one, though, it's just like 1 issue's worth, the finale, and then like the rest of the issue is just like cover mock-ups and like sketchbooks and stuff like that, so that's a little cheap, but it was a very solid ending to this story. It was good, it was decent, it has some nice exploration to it, but nothing about it it felt super kinetic, and that's one of the things that's been lacking in some of Scott Snyder's work. Cool in concept, but it's more explainy and less showy, and he's working with some of the best artists out there. But I have high hopes for other projects from him in the future, especially his work, again, with Francisco Francavilla over at Distillery. All right, then we got Project Cryptid, issue number 1 from Ahoy Comics. This is an anthology book. Each issue is going to have 2 stories done by a different creative team about some cryptid, some cryptozoological animal or being or entity, right? The first one is a Mark Russell story about the Yeti. It was all right. It was decent. It was light. It was easy. It was like Mark Russell got in and got out, but he didn't really go super, super deep with it, but he kind of does tell a Mark Russell-y type story. Then you got Paul Cornell telling the story about some kind of electric worm or something like that. I don't even know which cryptid this is, but the Mongolian death worm. That story is very silly, and it was all right. So the first book could have taken itself a little bit more seriously. It totally didn't, but it does have some of the new work from Grant Morrison. At the very back, there is like a short story by Grant Morrison that promises to be continued in a different Ahoy book, which I hate, but I also think Chapter 2 is written by somebody else, so I didn't read it yet, but I definitely plan on reading it a little bit after this video, maybe. Then we got Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, Fatal Exams, issue number 1 from Dynamite. This was an interesting book. It's like Sheena meets Never Been Kissed. Is that the story where Drew Barrymore has to pretend to be a high school student, go back to high school to figure out some kind of mystery or something? That's what Sheena's doing here. Sheena's going back to high school, or going to high school for the first time, I guess. I don't know. And there to basically try to figure out this mystery of this town or something. But it was all right. It was decent. It had some sexy bits. It had some fun bits. It had some cutesy bits. But my buddy Joe Corallo is the editor and packager of this book. And of course, our homies at Dynamite are putting it out. There's some really nice covers. If you like Sheena, if you like that kind of twist on something where it's taking a story that could easily be one thing and then being like, no, let's throw a little bit of Drew Barrymore energy into it. And I kind of liked that, and I thought it was kind of fun. So Joe and company, great job. Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, Fatal Exam. Speaking of Joe Corallo, Dahlia in the Dark is available finally in trade paperback now from Mad Cave Studios. Crime fiction fantasy from my buddy Joe Corallo. Some really great solid artwork. I would highly recommend this book if you're into crime fiction, if you're into fantasy, and it smells really freaking good. Donnie Dahlia is hired to deliver a package from Pennsylvania to New Mexico. What he doesn't know is that the package is a dangerous magical creature, Maya Luna, and she is the future queen of a fairy world that has remained hidden until now. Donnie and his gang will be caught in the middle of a supernatural war between changelings and fairies, a conflict that has been brewing in the shadows for centuries. So check that out from Joe Corallo. So that's what I read, that's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. And to recap, Sheena, Fatal Exams, a silly book that I had a lot of fun with. Project Cryptid could have been a little bit more serious or a little bit more funny. Barnstormers number 3, an overindulgent finale because of all the back matter that was unnecessary. Tear Us Apart, really great artwork, but a story that just didn't quite work for me. Red Room reminds us in its final issue that though this book is fun, the Red Room ain't. You know what I'm saying? Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, really loving the dichotomy of the story right there. Hunt for Skinwalker could have been a little bit more nuanced or creepy, but it still got the job done. Doctor Strange still gets the job done, but it was just okay. Fantastic Four, I like the story. Man, that coloring is very orangey plastic. Moon Knight continues to deliver on what Moon Knight's doing, and it's building up to something. Amazing Spider-Man, I liked it this time. Silver Surfer Rebirth, I love that Frank Miller cover, and I just have a lot of fun with that classic old school feeling book. Peacemaker tries hard, just like the TV show. Justice Society of America continuing to build from everything that was set up in the first arc and the Stargirl series. Shazam number 3, big explosive classic superhero action. Poison Ivy continues that momentum that was lost on their 2-month hiatus. Batman 137 improving on the momentum established by the first part of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War. Blue Beetle, dynamic artwork and a really cool, fun story. Fire and Ice doesn't take itself very seriously. Neither should you. Birds of Prey number 1, loved this book, but is there something off with the printing? You just let me know. Untold Tales of I Hate Fairyland. I mean, you like I Hate Fairyland, you're going to love that one. Kill Your Darlings has a lot of potential, but I'm not quite sold on it. The Sacrificers gets Smell of the Week and continues to deliver a great Rick Remender book, but the pick of the week, Swan Songs number 3, W. Maxwell Prince, Felipe Andrade, and company delivering One of the best books on shelves. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Station. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Pop, pop, boom!